some players had that ability to make it look easy.
Yeah.
I remember Roberto Clemente used to make playing right field look real easy.
Yeah, like anybody could go out there and say, hey, that doesn't look easy. You can get plenty of time to get to the ball.
Plenty of time, and the ball's curving away from him, but he did it with such grace that it just looked easy. I've been fortunate like that, but it definitely ain't easy.
And Kareem with the skyhook.
Chicago found Kareem Abdul-Jabbar virtually unstoppable.
That takes care of that. That's 11 points now for Kareem.
This is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a 6-time NBA champion, 6-time MVP, and the league's all-time leading scorer. Kareem dominated for 2 decades with his signature skyhook and unmatched consistency. But beyond the spotlight, Kareem possessed a quiet appreciation for talent, often praising players he felt didn't get the recognition they truly deserved. So, let's explore 6 players who earned the respect of the Hall of Famer and discover why Kareem regarded them so highly. But before proceeding, please take a second and hit that subscribe button, and like this video, this will mean the world to us. Thanks. Nate Thurmond, the defensive anchor. He was a defensive juggernaut and a player who earned the respect of legends like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. His reputation as one of the toughest defenders of all time wasn't just some myth. It was built through years of relentless effort and matchups against some of the greatest big men to ever play the game. When Kareem mentions you as one of the 2 toughest opponents he ever faced, that says everything you need to know about Nate Thurmond. Despite humble beginnings, his size, athleticism, and work ethic quickly turned heads at Central High School, where he dominated the court. But let's not mistake Thurmond's rise as something easy or straightforward. While his skills helped get him recruited to Bowling Green State University, it wasn't immediately clear if he'd be able to compete in the big leagues. At Bowling Green, Thurmond honed the defensive acumen and rebounding abilities that would later define his career. He was so dominant on the boards and so disruptive in the paint that Bowling Green retired his jersey long before many casual fans even knew his name. It's ironic, but telling. Thurmond's brilliance was often confined to those who truly understood basketball. And when Thurmond entered the NBA in 1963 as the 3rd overall pick by the San Francisco Warriors, he was walking into a league littered with legendary centers like Bill Russell, Wilt, and later Kareem. It was a daunting environment for any young player to develop in, let alone a rookie. These were titans of the hardwood, and rookie centers were just as likely to get humiliated as they were to learn. Thurmond, however, wasn't just another rookie. His first major challenge came when he played alongside Wilt during his rookie year. Being a backup to one of the most prolific scorers and rebounders of all time might crush most players' confidence, but for Thurmond, it was a crash course in how to survive and thrive in the NBA. And by his 2nd season, the Warriors traded Wilt to Philadelphia, and Thurmond finally had the spotlight to showcase his unique skill set. And boy, did he make the most of it. Nate quickly established himself as one of the best defensive players in the league and a double-double machine, averaging 15 points and 15 rebounds for his career. He was a workhorse who did the dirty work no one else wanted to do. As a 6'11" center, his agility and toughness made him almost impossible to push around. Kareem would later say that his defense wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Nate wasn't going to let you get into a rhythm, and he was never afraid to bang bodies with bigger players. He made life difficult for me every time we played, Kareem explained, emphasizing how Nate forced even great scorers like him to take uncomfortable shots. In 1974, when block statistics were first officially recorded, Nate made history. On October 18th of that year, in his very first game as a member of the Chicago Bulls, after being traded from the Warriors, he recorded the first quadruple-double in NBA history, an incredible 22 points, 14 rebounds, and 13 assists. That legendary performance cemented his reputation as one of the most versatile big men in the game and showcased skills that fans and analysts alike often overlooked due to the spotlight on flashier scorers like Wilt, Bill Russell, and Kareem. And for all his greatness, his career was unfortunately overshadowed by the era in which he played. Imagine trying to carve out your legacy when you're constantly compared to not one but 2 of the most towering figures in basketball history, Wilt and Bill Russell. And while Chamberlain was shattering scoring records and Russell was busy collecting rings with the Boston Celtics, he quietly went about his business as an elite 2-way player for the Warriors and later the Bulls and Cavaliers. He was never the loudest voice in the room, nor the guy chasing personal accolades, but anyone who played against him knew better than to underestimate his impact. Kareem, in particular, often praised his ability to battle him physically while staying disciplined and rarely fouling. "Nate was one of the only defenders who could disrupt my rhythm without hacking me," Kareem shared in an interview decades later. That's an endorsement most players would dream of. But for all his contributions, Thurmond never won an NBA championship, a fact that has unfairly kept him out of the greatest ever discussions. What many don't realize is how close he came. In 1967, he led the Warriors to the NBA Finals, only to lose to Wilt and the powerhouse Philadelphia 76ers, often considered one of the greatest NBA teams ever assembled. And despite this, his resilience never faltered. Players like Kareem often reiterated that the lack of championship rings didn't diminish his greatness. Even as he played his final game in the league, fans and players alike recognized the greatness of a man whose contributions went far beyond stats. But hold on, everything we have covered about Nate Thurmond wasn't as intense as it was with this player. In fact, he was a machine on the court. Bob Lanier, the skilled behemoth. Standing at 6'11" and sporting size 22 sneakers, Bob was the definition of a dominant big man, but his story goes far beyond his physicality. Lanier entered the league as the first overall pick in the 1970 NBA draft, after a stellar college career at St. Bonaventure University, where he led his team to the Final Four in 1970, cementing himself as one of the best collegiate players of his era. However, tragedy struck before Lanier could even begin his professional career at full strength. During the NCAA tournament, Bob suffered a severe knee injury, forcing him to play through pain and eventually requiring surgery between his college and NBA careers. Critics initially doubted if he would ever live up to the hype of being a top draft pick. Yet Bob silenced those doubts with his incredible skill and resilience. And when he joined the Detroit Pistons as a rookie, the franchise was struggling to find its identity. Despite playing for a losing team, his individual brilliance immediately stood out. He quickly became a dominant interior scorer and rebounder, averaging 15.6 points and 8.1 rebounds during his rookie season, even while adjusting to the grueling demands of the NBA. Bob was a skilled big man who could score from anywhere on the court, and he played the right way, Kareem once said in admiration of his former rival. His ability to dominate the post while being able to pull up from mid-range forced defenders to stay alert at all times. He wasn't just an obstacle to overcome, he was a puzzle to solve, one that even elite players struggled with. And by his second season, Bob was officially a star. He averaged over 25 points per game, a remarkable achievement for a center in an era dominated by legends like Wilt and Kareem. Yet Lanier was often overshadowed, playing for a Pistons team that couldn't climb the rankings in a league historically dominated by marquee franchises. And while players like Kareem enjoyed the limelight with championship-caliber teams, Bob stayed loyal to Detroit, grinding through tough seasons without external validation. By 1974, Lanier was consistently delivering all-star level performances. He earned his first of 8 all-star appearances that year, showcasing his versatility and earning the respect of fans and peers alike. The accolades were well-deserved, but for Bob, his career was never just about individual achievements. He always gave his all for his team, even when the Pistons struggled. Despite their fierce battles, Kareem respected his sportsmanship and intelligence, calling him one of the greatest rivals he'd ever faced. And yet, as the years went by, Lanier rarely received the credit he deserved, overshadowed by the glamour of the Lakers, Celtics, and other big market teams. But even as his body began to betray him, he never lost his passion for the game. His numbers stayed elite, with career averages of over 20 points and 10 rebounds per game, testament to his consistency and work ethic. Kareem often lamented how injuries robbed Lanier of the full recognition he deserved, saying, "Bob was underrated simply because people didn't appreciate the subtleties of his game. He was an artist in the post, but too often people missed the beauty of his work." And one of the standout moments in Lanier's career came during the 1976-77 season, when he averaged 25.3 points and 12.3 rebounds, earning perhaps the strongest praise of his career. That season, Lanier solidified himself as a player who could dominate not just with numbers, but with leadership. Though the Pistons didn't achieve playoff success, Lanier's impact transcended simple wins and losses. Wherever he went, he left an impression on teammates, opponents, and fans who admired his relentless dedication to the game. Later in his career, he transitioned to the Milwaukee Bucks, where he played a pivotal role on a far more successful team. While he was no longer the same explosive force he had been earlier in his career, his basketball IQ and leadership became indispensable to Milwaukee's success. He helped guide the Bucks to several playoff appearances and was often celebrated for his ability to step up in big moments. And when Lanier retired in 1984, he left behind a legacy of toughness, skill, and perseverance. He didn't have the championship rings or MVP trophies that define other greats, but he had something just as valuable: the respect of his peers. He became an ambassador for the NBA, using his platform to give back to communities and promote the game he loved. His dedication to youth development and social causes further solidified his status as one of basketball's true gentlemen. Now, we move on to one of the best center of his era. In fact, without his presence on the court, the Celtics would have suffered defensively. Bill Walton, the cerebral playmaker. Known for his infectious personality, sky-high basketball IQ, and incredible two-way ability, Walton was a phenomenon. Whether you admired his dominance at UCLA, his journey has always commanded respect. But behind the accolades and championships lies a story of perseverance, pain, and profound brilliance that makes Walton one of the most fascinating figures the game has ever seen. His basketball roots go back to his time at UCLA, where he played under the legendary John Wooden. The team dominated during his tenure, winning back-to-back championships in 1972 and 1973. Walton, a seemingly unshakable force in the post, was the heart and soul of Wooden's system, redefining what it meant to be a big man with his versatility. His 44-point performance in the 1973 NCAA title game, where he shot an astonishing 21 of 22 from the field, remains one of the greatest individual performances in college basketball history. By the time he declared for the NBA, Walton was already being labeled a generational talent, a big man who could pass like a guard, dominate the glass, and protect the rim like few others before him. However, entering the league came with its own set of challenges, and when Walton was drafted first overall by the Portland Trail Blazers in 1974, expectations were sky high. But his early years in the pros were plagued with injuries. He broke his nose, his foot, and even his wrist, all in his first 2 seasons. The injuries raised questions about whether he could live up to the immense hype surrounding him. Despite these struggles, Walton never lost sight of his love for the game or his unique understanding of how basketball should be played. Through sheer determination and the ability to adapt, Walton made a full recovery and began to show the world his potential. And his true breakout came during the 1976-77 season, when Walton, fully healthy at last, led the Portland Trail Blazers to an unforgettable championship run. That year, he averaged 18.6 points, 14.4 rebounds, and 3.8 assists per game, a stat line that showcased his dominance in all aspects of the game. In the NBA Finals, Walton was a force of nature. Going up against Julius Erving's Philadelphia 76ers in one of the most iconic finals matchups, Walton delivered, averaging 18.5 points and 19 rebounds over the 6-game series. The Blazers, considered underdogs, came back from a 2-0 deficit to win the series. Walton's dominance in Game 6, where he finished with 20 points and a finals-clinching victory, earned him the Finals MVP award and solidified his place among the league's greats. And at his peak, he was practically unstoppable, not because he was the most prolific scorer, but because of his cerebral approach to the game. He had an almost preternatural ability to create seamless plays for his teammates and to defend without fouling. Even Kareem, who often praised Walton for his fundamentals, said, "Many people focus on stats, but Bill could control a game just by his presence and decision-making. His passing, positioning, and awareness were years ahead of his time." However, as high as Walton soared, his career was unfortunately marred by injuries that soon became recurring. His feet betrayed him once again after the 1977 championship, leading to missed opportunities for Portland to continue their dominance. His injuries culminated in a rocky departure from the Trail Blazers, as frustration with the medical staff caused a rift between Walton and the organization. And despite sitting out several seasons with debilitating foot issues, his passion for the game never wavered. His eventual return to the NBA with the San Diego Clippers was a sign of his resilience, but the same brilliance that had made him a generational talent was muted by the wear and tear on his body. And in 1985, Walton found salvation late in his career when he joined the powerhouse Boston Celtics. Finally healthy enough to contribute as a reserve, he played a key role in the Celtics' championship-winning 1985-86 season, which many consider one of the greatest teams in NBA history. Elvin Hayes, the relentless competitor. Known as the Big E, he was one of the most dominant power forwards to ever play the game, yet his impact somehow seems underrated in a sea of basketball's biggest names. From his college days at the University of Houston, where he famously dueled against Kareem in the legendary game of the century, to his stellar NBA career, Elvin was a force of nature who rarely got the recognition he deserved. It was this juxtaposition, the immense skill and constant overshadowing, that made Kareem place him high on his list of most underrated players. Kareem once said of him, "Elvin was an incredible competitor who never backed down from a challenge and always gave everything he had." Elvin entered the league with the San Diego Rockets as the #1 overall pick in the 1968 NBA draft, and he wasted no time making his presence known. As a rookie, Elvin led the entire NBA in scoring, averaging an outstanding 28.4 points per game to go along with 17.1 rebounds per contest. Few rookies have ever had such a monumental debut season. Yet somehow, those incredible numbers did not translate into the kind of spotlight typically reserved for other rising stars. Perhaps it was because Elvin was playing for an expansion team in the Rockets, or perhaps his quiet, unassuming demeanor worked against him in the flashier world of professional basketball. Elvin had a game that was built on hustle, determination, and a mid-range fadeaway jumper that was nearly impossible to guard. Standing at 6'9" and weighing over 230 pounds, he was a physical mismatch for most forwards of the era. But it was never just his size that turned heads. It was also the way he maneuvered with a grace most big men didn't possess. Kareem has spoken about Elvin's ability to use his strength and finesse in tandem, describing him as both powerful and elegant, like a jazz musician who also knows how to fight. For Kareem, who was known for his cerebral approach to the game, the artistry in Elvin's style was something to admire. But Elvin was more than a player of style. He was a player of incredible substance. And one of his most defining moments came in 1978, when he led the Washington Bullets to an NBA championship alongside teammate Wes Unseld. That title run was the crowning jewel of his career, a validation of all the work he had poured into the game. And for years, Elvin had been one of the top scorers and rebounders in the league, but the championship solidified his legacy. In that playoff run, Elvin was nothing short of brilliant, averaging 21.8 points, 13.3 rebounds, and nearly 3 blocks per game. In the finals, Elvin and the Bullets faced the Seattle Supersonics in a grueling 7-game series. It was Elvin's scoring and defense that made all the difference. His performance in Game 1 alone, 30 points and 12 rebounds, set the tone for the Washington victory. And speaking about his contribution to the game, Kareem remarked, "Elvin's work ethic was unmatched, and he played with a chip on his shoulder every single night." For Kareem, that championship solidified what he already knew. But Elvin carved out his own niche, quietly becoming one of the most consistent performers the NBA had ever seen. Over the course of his 16-year career, Elvin amassed over 27,000 points and more than 16,000 rebounds, numbers that still rank among the best in league history. Yet accolades didn't seem to come as readily as they should have. He was a 12-time All-Star, but those selections often felt like afterthoughts rather than the celebration of a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Elvin himself seemed to notice the lack of recognition, once saying, "I've done my job my entire life. I played the game the right way. Everything else, I can't control." And part of the reason Elvin remained so underrated could be the era he played in. The NBA of the 1970s was far different from the marketing machine we know today. There was no social media to amplify performances, no wall-to-wall TV coverage, and players like Elvin, who were consistent rather than loud, often got lost in the shuffle. In a league filled with larger-than-life personalities, from Wilt's dominance to Julius Erving's acrobatics, Elvin let his game do the talking. His rivalry with Kareem itself was a study in contrasts, one player who leaned into his fame and status, and another who went about his business with little concern for the spotlight. Their on-court battles were legendary. Hayes found ways to challenge Kareem in every encounter. Oscar Robertson, the triple-double pioneer, widely recognized as the Big O, stands as one of the most groundbreaking players basketball has ever seen. He was never just skilled. He completely redefined what a guard could do on the court. From the moment he entered the league, Oscar was setting standards that players still aspire to reach today, averaging a triple-double for an entire season in 1962, a feat so astonishing that it seemed almost mythical. He showcased a level of versatility and dominance that few dared to dream about at the time. When Kareem joined the Milwaukee Bucks in 1969 as a 22-year-old rookie, he was fortunate to have Oscar by his side. Together, they would form a dynamic duo, capturing the 1971 NBA championship. For Kareem, who was still finding his way in the league, Oscar was more than a teammate. He was a mentor, someone who helped shape his understanding of leadership and what it took to win at the highest level. But his journey to greatness wasn't without its struggles. Before the championships and accolades, the Ohio-born point guard faced countless obstacles, not just on the court but off it. Growing up in a segregated America, Oscar dealt with racial discrimination from a young age. As a high school player in Indianapolis, he led his Crispus Attucks high school team to back-to-back state championships in 1955 and 1956, a historic feat, as they became the first all-black team to win an Indiana state title. Despite this, Robertson and his teammates frequently faced hostility and racism, with towns refusing to host them and certain places barring them from eating or staying. For Robertson, basketball wasn't just a game. It was an escape and a platform to rise above the systemic inequality he experienced. And when he entered the University of Cincinnati, his basketball acumen blossomed even further. But alongside his dominance on the court, where he averaged an astonishing 33.8 points and 15 rebounds over his college career, he faced limited opportunities simply because of his race. Stories of the team being forced to stay in second-rate accommodations and endure abuse from opposing fans remained constant during his collegiate years. And still, Robertson thrived, becoming a 3-time College Player of the Year and solidifying himself as the most exciting prospect of his generation. His entrance into the NBA in 1960 carried with it a palpable sense of anticipation, and he did not disappoint. In his rookie season with the Cincinnati Royals, he averaged a ridiculous 30.5 points and 9.7 assists per game. The league had never seen a guard capable of controlling a game in every facet like this before. His impact was immediate, but beyond the stats, he played with an intelligence and vision that were decades ahead of his time. His ability to see the floor, create opportunities for his teammates, and dominate at all 3 levels of scoring was second to none. Kareem would later reflect on his own rookie season with Robertson and credit him for showing him how to be a true professional. Oscar taught me how to think smarter on the court and how to carry myself as a professional, Kareem shared during an interview. He had an answer for everything, and he showed me how to focus on winning above everything else. In 1970, Robertson, after 10 seasons with the Royals, joined the Milwaukee Bucks in a trade that would alter the franchise's history forever. Pairing him with his raw talent and physical dominance, the Bucks went on to post a 66-16 record in the 1970-71 season, the best in the league at the time, and steamrolled through the playoffs to win their first NBA title. And while Kareem continued to develop into one of the greatest centers the game had ever seen, he would always cite Robertson as one of the key figures who helped him transition from college to the pros. Oscar was like having a second coach on the floor, Kareem said. He understood every player's role, every moment in the game, and he always knew how to elevate the team dynamic. His ability to play nearly every position on the court and completely take over a game made him one of the most versatile players to ever grace the hardwood. He averaged an incredible 25.7 points, 9.5 assists, and 7.5 rebounds per game over his 14-year career, finishing as the league's all-time assist leader. While his playing ability is undeniable, his influence also extended beyond basketball. He spearheaded the NBA Players Association in the fight against player exploitation, leading to a landmark antitrust suit known as the Oscar Robertson Rule. This legal victory paved the way for free agency within the league, forever altering the business of basketball and empowering players to have more control over their careers. Walt Bellamy, the steady dominance. Unlike the big names who often surround discussions of that time, like Wilt and Bill Russell, Bellamy never quite got the widespread recognition his talent demanded. But for Kareem, Bellamy was impossible to overlook. He was a force to be reckoned with, a physical marvel who combined size, athleticism, and skill in a way that consistently made life difficult for his opponents. Bellamy posted outstanding career averages of 20.1 points and 13.7 rebounds per game. Numbers like those should alone place him on a pedestal, but that wasn't always the case. He seemed to exist in the shadow of the NBA's already larger-than-life centers. For Kareem, though, Bellamy was never just another player in the league. He was, in his own words, an imposing physical presence who didn't get the respect he deserved because the league was stacked with so many great big men. His journey into professional basketball is one worth telling, not just for what he achieved, but for the roadblocks he faced getting there. Born in North Carolina in 1939, Bellamy grew up during a time when civil rights struggles were at the forefront of American society. As a towering African-American athlete trying to make his way in the sport, he not only encountered challenges on the court, but also in navigating the racially charged atmosphere of the time. Bellamy's high school prowess led him to Indiana University, where he became a collegiate star, averaging 20.6 points and 15.5 rebounds per game. However, his talents weren't always enough to shield him from the systemic challenges he faced, as one of the few black players in a region that was still deeply segregated. Persevering nonetheless, Bellamy became a trailblazer. His scoring ability and rebounding dominance earned him attention on the national stage, and when he entered the professional league
led
as
the
the
league
first
in field
overall
goal
pick in
percentage
the
and had one of the
1961
best
NBA
rookie
draft,
seasons in
the league
NBA
wasn't prepared for
history.
the impact he would bring. He exploded onto the scene in a way that few rookies have ever done. In his very first season, he averaged a ridiculous 31.6 points and 19 rebounds per game, earning Rookie of the Year honors. To this day, those numbers remain among the best rookie season performances in NBA history. That 1961-62 season also corresponded with Wilt's 50.4 points per game season, a statistical outburst that soaked up much of the national attention. But hidden in those headlines was his brilliance, and Kareem never let that fact be forgotten. And years later, when discussing the talents of his predecessors, Kareem highlighted how his ridiculous rookie performance wasn't just a flash in the pan, but a demonstration of his long-term potential. Despite his explosive entrance, Bellamy's spotlight seemed to wane as the years went by, overshadowed by the consistent dominance of Wilt, the championship accolades of Bill Russell, and, later, Kareem himself. But this lack of recognition didn't negate his contributions. Kareem always appreciated the consistency Bellamy brought to his game, a quality that many fans of that era seemed to take for granted. Walt played against some of the greatest centers in NBA history and held his own every single night, said Kareem in an interview. It's true. While some players faltered in the face of daunting competition, Bellamy remained a steady force, playing 14 seasons in the league and scoring over 20,000 points in total. That's no small feat, considering the caliber of competition. Bellamy competed nightly against players like Wilt, Bill Russell, and Bob Lanier, and while he didn't collect championship rings like some of his contemporaries, he had a way of commanding respect from those closest to the game. His ability to battle against the best, while maintaining his professionalism and humility, was a trait that left an indelible mark. And one particularly unique aspect of his career came during his infamous 1968-69 season. For context, he began the year playing for the New York Knicks, but was soon traded to the Detroit Pistons just a handful of games into the season. And what makes this interesting is Bellamy finished that season playing an astounding 88 games, more than the typical 82-game schedule, because he played additional games before and after his trade. Even in strange situations like this, Bellamy showcased his ability to endure and produce at a high level. It was this consistency that left basketball purists, including Kareem, admiring what Bellamy could do, regardless of the circumstances. However, it was never just what Bellamy did on the stat sheet that earned Kareem's admiration. It was his perseverance and his ability to be a constant during one of the league's most competitive periods. Playing in an era dominated by legends might have been daunting for many, but to Bellamy, it was just another opportunity to prove himself every single night. And by the time Bellamy retired in 1975, he didn't have the championships or MVP awards to cement his legacy in mainstream discussions. But his body of work spoke for itself. His longevity, reliability, and ability to contribute against the league's toughest competition put him in a category of underrated greats who deserve more recognition. The Hall of Fame later welcomed Bellamy in 1993, giving his career the acknowledgement it sorely deserved. Still, for Kareem and the players who competed during and around his time, his importance to the game was always evident. For someone like Kareem, a player who values basketball's full history and respects every nuance of its evolution, Bellamy represented the kind of greatness that didn't always make headlines, but could never be ignored. In reflecting on Bellamy's career, Kareem once remarked, "Greatness isn't always about being talked about. Sometimes greatness lies in being undeniable when you step on the court. Bellamy might not roll off the tongue for casual basketball fans today, but for those who know the game, he's a cornerstone of what makes the NBA's history so compelling. His story, marked by physical dominance, technical mastery, and perseverance through difficult periods of time, serves as a reminder that the game rewards not just the flashy, but also the steady. For Kareem, basketball was never just about stats or accolades. It was about the sheer joy and art of the game, and these players embodied that in their own distinct ways. So, the next time you think of Kareem, remember the respect he had for those who quietly pushed the game forward. All right, that's all for today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.